Welcome back to our live training session. In this tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at doing our VTEC tuning, turning on our VTEC activation, going through the calibration process to dial in our fueling, our spark timing, and our variable cam control. So we have a lot of things to go through in this tutorial. Let's first jump in and take a look at our EMU Black software and see where we're at and what we need to do to prep ourselves in order to engage our VTEC, in order to do our high cam or VTEC style tuning. Let's jump in here and take a look. So I have my EMU Black software open on my laptop screen. I'm sitting in the vehicle, ignition key is powered on, the engine is off, so we're key on engine off status. USB cable's plugged into my laptop, I'm plugged into the EMU Black. We can see down here at the lower portion of the screen, we are live with the EMU Black. We can see that's connected status. Now, we're gonna be finding we have the last three windows here to take a look at. We have our VTEC window, our cam control window, our cam programming, and then our spark. Now, recall the way we've set everything up here when we're dealing with a Honda VTEC motor is that we have a VE table 1, V table 2, spark timing table 1, spark timing table 2, cam control target table 1, cam control target table 2. We have two different tables to characterize low cam non-VTEC and high cam with our VTEC operation. Because that cam profile is very distinct, a lot more lift, a lot more duration on our VTEC compared to low cam, we'll find that we have a completely different characteristic out of our engine. So the variable cam control in terms of the targeting is going to be different, our fueling to the engine is going to be different, and then also our spark timing could potentially be different, but we'll find that we want to have this flexibility in our programming. We want to be able to model things the way that Honda does in the factory ECU programming, because Honda knows if they're going in and trying to account for all kinds of conditions that the engine might run in, they need to have separate tables set up for low and high cam operation. So let's jump in here and take a look at what we've done in order to configure everything properly. So jumping into our VTEC tab, this is going to be related to our VE programming and also in the VTEC programming. So we have here our VTEC activation parameters. Let's go through these parameters here. Now, we want VTEC to come in very, very early on doing our high cam tuning. Now we're gonna have to actually set the VTEC activation point. That's going to be where the two torque curves cross between our low and high cam. So we'll get into that a little bit later in the tutorial. But we want to activate VTEC relatively early. So we're locked onto the VTEC cam lobe and we can map out our fuel, spark, and variable cam control properly. And then we can figure out, again, where that ideal VTEC engagement point should be at. So looking here in our VTEC control window, we've assigned our VTEC output to our H-bridge 1, which is a 12-volt output, a high side output, to turn on the solenoid when we need it to turn on. The conditions below here are what we have to work with. Now we have an RPM, map, TPS, VSS thresholds that we can exceed. We also have a secondary set of thresholds that we can exceed in order to turn on or off our VTEC. Now, why do we have this? Well, it gives you the ability to have two distinct profiles for VTEC to engage. So for example, if we want VTEC to engage very low, something like 3600, to be able to get a really broad power band if we're at full throttle, that's great. If we're at something like 60-70% throttle and higher, if we're part throttle driving, let's say on the highway, and our gearing is pretty aggressive, we might be at 4,000 RPM at 75 mile per hour. We don't want VTEC to be engaged. We want to be out of VTEC. So we could set a separate threshold so that we can gauge VTEC at something like 5,000 at a lower throttle angle, but we need to have a more aggressive conditions in order to set things up to engage VTEC at the lower RPM. The way Honda programs the VTEC point, it's a floating point. They have a low RPM, the lowest RPM we wanted to engage at, essentially full throttle. Then they also have a higher RPM with less throttle input to engage that higher RPM threshold to be able to get into VTEC in part throttle if you're at high enough RPM. You want to be in high cam, let's say something like 5,000 or 6,000 RPM. So we're going to go ahead and program our conditions later in the tutorial, but what we want to do here is match our conditions here, so where we turn it on and turn it off at, between the blue and the pink values here. Let's go and take a look. RPM min, I'm going to say this is going to be set to 3,000 RPM. The max, this is going to be when we want it to turn off. We want to have it set 9,200. Let's go higher than rev limiter. The map minimum, so the lowest map pressure we allow it to engage, I'm going to set this low at something like 5 or 10 kPa. I want to set my thresholds a little bit lower. Now I'm setting it at 3,000 RPM. Let's be a little bit more specific with this. The reason why I'm setting it at 3,000, I'm probably going to have my VTEC engagement point with stock cams anywhere between 36 to 4,000 RPM. I want to engage it at 3,000, be able to map out the fuel and spark timing at 3,000 RPM to 4,000 RPM range, even though I'm going to engage it potentially at 36 to 4,000 as just a guess with our stock camshafts. We don't want to engage it any lower than 3,000 because we need at least 55 psi of oil pressure at the cylinder head for VTEC to reliably engage. If we don't have that much cylinder pressure, it's not going to engage, and we'll find that if we try to engage VTEC too soon, it can create an oil pressure drop, and it may potentially over time starve the bottom end of oil as we're running the engine. So we need to be mindful of this. So that's why I'm going to be blocking it out anything lower than 3,000. It's going to be the start point. And we want to set our conditions so that it turns on, at least right now, to do our calibration process. We want to set our conditions so it's very easy to engage VTEC. So I want to have a very low map pressure in order for it to engage. So I'll say 5 kPa. The max we'll leave at 115 kPa. That's fine. That's going to be where it could turn off at. Now the max I always try to set.
Thanks for checking out our teaser clip. If you want to see the rest of this video and more than 500 hours of current EFI training we have to offer, make sure you click right here. If you want to go and check out more teaser clips from this training course, click here. And you don't want to miss any of the videos we're going to be releasing on this channel, so make sure you subscribe and click here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.